Great. Can you tell me your name?
My name is Sandra Crowe Dunn. I grew up in this community, and this is my church, home church. And growing up in this community, this church and the Luther Green Center were our sources of recreation. We had no wives, no boys and girls club. This is my uncle's barn. My uncle was Luther Green, and I'm very proud that the barn is being saved, and it'll be nice to have it as part of the history of this town and this community.
What do you remember? Do you remember the barn from your childhood?
Yes, I remember the barn because my uncle farmed and had tobacco, and I remember helping with him with tobacco. So yes, I remember the barn at his house.
What kind of activities did you do when you helped him?
I was a hander, so I would hand the person who was looping the tobacco and putting it on the stick, so I would hand the tobacco to the person.
Could you describe the process of harvesting the tobacco and then curing it?
Well, the tobacco was planted, and then about August or September, the leaves would be ripe, and the people would prime it. We call prime it, and we had mules who would pull what we call a sled down the middle of the field, and the people who were priming the tobacco would put it into the sleds. The sleds would be pulled to the barns, and the tobacco would be unloaded onto a table, and then you would have a person who would be what we call looping the tobacco, and there would be two people standing on. One person would be on one side, and the other person would be on the other side, and we would be handing the tobacco to the person who would be looping it using strings and putting on sticks. And once the sticks were filled, we would lay it in a pile. And then when we finished at the end of the day, the men would take the tobacco and they would put it into the barn. Then it would be, you would have a fire, and they would light a fire, and it would cure for a certain number of days. That's the process.
I was told that when the tobacco was curing, sometimes the farmer would need to stay with the barn overnight?
Yes, sometimes they would, to make sure that it didn't catch on fire, or to either add fuel to keep the fire going, add fuel to the fire.
What other crops did your uncle, Mr. Green, grow?
Well, I think other than tobacco, that was the primary cash crop, and basically it was just garden. So, and everybody would have a pig, maybe some chickens. The only cotton, I remember my mother one year decided that she was going to have an acre of cotton. And I never knew how hard it was to accumulate cotton to make it weigh. It seemed like you could pick all day and all weekend, and you wouldn't have a lot. So it made me think about how people who did that, you know, earlier than during my lifetime, you know, how they did it. It was an eye-opener for me, but she only did it 1 year.
Were there different animals associated with the farm? You had mentioned mules and a pig.
Well, we had a mule. That was about it. You know, pigs. Maybe somebody had a goat. You know, chickens. But that was the extent, I think, of animals as far as my memory.
So what did you do for fun when you were a kid?
Basically, we would come out here on the weekends, and there'll be ball games, or we would go to one of those houses and play, and that was about the extent of entertainment here in this community.
And you were telling me a little bit about the clubhouse. Can you describe it?
The center was called the clubhouse. Each family contributed $50, and that's how the materials were purchased and it was built. And during the summer we had ball games, and when we had out here, and they would sell soft drinks and sandwiches. And when we had vacation Bible school during the summer, we would have the vacation Bible school classes here, and then we would just walk straight through the field to the clubhouse, and we would have refreshments. And then on Friday we would have hot dogs and hamburgers.
Nice. Can you tell me a little bit about your Uncle Luther Green? What was he like? What do you remember of him?
Well, Uncle Luther had no children. He was my mother's brother. He had a twin sister named Lillian, and so that was fun to know that my mom had twin brothers and sister. And he was always wanted people to have their own homes. So he was very instrumental in having people helping people build their homes.
Great, great. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.